A key turns quietly in the lock. The front door opens. A bag slips from one shoulder. Shoes come off almost without thinking. Nothing dramatic happened today. No crisis, no argument, no impossible deadline. And yet, as the evening begins, something feels unexpectedly heavy. Even choosing what to cook, replying to one more message, or deciding whether to tidy the kitchen suddenly feels like more than your mind wants to carry. Most people assume this feeling is simply the price of a busy life. They tell themselves they need more discipline, more sleep, or perhaps a longer vacation. But what if exhaustion doesn't begin where we think it does? Across Japan, many ordinary homes reveal a surprisingly different story. Step inside a small apartment in Tokyo as an office worker returns from the train. At the entrance, shoes and bags return to their usual places. Hands are washed. Indoor slippers replace outdoor shoes. Before anything else demands attention, the kettle is set for tea. Nothing here is designed to impress, yet the atmosphere seems to soften the weight of the day. The difference isn't that life in Japan is free from stress. It's that many homes are quietly arranged so stress doesn't follow people from room to room. While many of us think of energy as something we replenish after it's gone, these environments protect it before it begins to disappear. Behavioral psychologists have long observed that the brain spends remarkable amounts of energy on tiny decisions. Every object competing for attention, every unfinished task, every waiting notification places another small demand on your mental resources. On their own, each seems harmless. Together, they become a constant background conversation your brain never fully escapes. That's why two people can finish equally demanding workdays and arrive home feeling completely different. One walks into a home that keeps asking silent questions. The other returns to one that has already answered many of them. Japanese homes don't simply look peaceful, they reduce hidden work. That realization changes everything. Perhaps your energy isn't disappearing because you're weak or undisciplined. It's been leaking away through hundreds of tiny moments your brain has learned to accept as normal. In this documentary, we'll explore 4 surprisingly ordinary Japanese life hacks that protect mental energy long before stress has the chance to accumulate. We'll discover how the entrance to a home shapes your emotional state, how visual clutter drains attention, why small transitions help the nervous system recover, and how an ordinary living space can become far more than a place to sleep. Because the most important part of a stressful day may not be what happens at work, it may be what happens in the quiet moment you finally walk through your front door. Chapter 1. Where most energy quietly disappears. A train disappears into the distance as a 38-year-old office worker begins the familiar walk home through a quiet Tokyo neighborhood. The most demanding part of the day is over. Meetings have ended. Emails have stopped arriving. Work is finished. And yet, as the apartment door opens, an unexpected heaviness remains. Nothing terrible happened, but even deciding what to cook, whether to fold the laundry, or if it's worth replying to one last message, suddenly feels exhausting. By evening, it seems the day has already taken everything. Most people assume this is simply what adulthood feels like. But what if your energy has been disappearing long before you ever noticed feeling tired? Many Japanese homes are built around a different idea. Rather than focusing on how to recover energy, they reduce the moments that quietly drain it in the first place. The first 2 Japanese life hacks begin exactly where every stressful day ends, at the front door. Life hack 1, the entryway reset watch. That same office worker arrive home the following evening. Before speaking to anyone, checking a notification, or thinking about dinner, he pauses at the entrance. Her shoes are placed neatly beside the wall. Her work bag goes onto the same hook. She washes her hands. She changes into indoor slippers. The kettle is set for tea. The entire routine lasts barely a minute. Nothing about it appears remarkable. Yet something important has already happened. In many Japanese homes, this small entrance area is known as the genkan. To an outside visitor, it may seem like nothing more than a place to remove shoes. Psychologically, however, it serves a deeper purpose, creating a clear boundary between the outside world and the private space of home. Behavioral psychologists have found that the brain relies heavily on environmental cues. We don't switch identities the moment we walk through a door. Our surroundings signal when one part of the day has ended and another has begun. Without that transition, work follows us into the kitchen, into the living room, even into the bedroom. Many of us arrive home physically, but mentally, we're still at our desks. The genkan interrupts that pattern. Each familiar action sends the same message: work ends here. Instead of asking for another series of decisions, the environment quietly decides what comes first. That small reduction in mental effort begins lowering stress before the evening has truly started. The transformation isn't about becoming more disciplined, it's about teaching your brain that home is where pressure is allowed to stop. Perhaps that's why the beginning of your evening matters more than you realize. But even after crossing that first threshold, another invisible drain is waiting inside many homes. Life hack 2: reduce visual decisions. Imagine stepping into your living room after a long day. Mail is scattered across the table. A charger hangs over the edge of the counter. Yesterday's shopping bag still sits beside the sofa. Laundry waits on a chair. A few unopened packages sit quietly in the corner. None of these things are urgent. Most people wouldn't even call the room messy. Yet your eyes keep moving from one unfinished reminder to the next. We often think clutter only becomes a problem when it prevents us from finding something, but the brain experiences it differently. Every visible object asks a small question. Should I move this? Should I clean that? Don't forget this later. Even if you do nothing, your brain has already spent energy noticing those choices. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The more small decisions your brain processes throughout the day, the harder even simple tasks begin to feel. Exhaustion isn't always created by difficult work. Sometimes it comes from hundreds of tiny decisions that never seemed important on their own. That's one reason many Japanese homes embrace intentional simplicity. Objects have a designated place. Countertops stay relatively clear. Shelves aren't filled simply because space is available. The room is allowed to breathe. Empty space isn't wasted. It's part of the design. Instead of asking your eyes to process dozens of competing signals, the room tells your nervous system that nothing demands immediate attention. The home begins giving energy back instead of asking for more. By the end of the evening, the difference isn't just a cleaner room, it's a quieter mind. Instead of thinking, I always feel drained when I get home, you begin to realize, my environment has been spending my energy. Tonight, try one simple experiment. Create a 1-minute arrival ritual at your front door. Then clear the first surface your eyes naturally land on when you walk inside. You may discover that your evening doesn't begin after dinner. It begins the moment your home decides whether to welcome your mind or keep it working. And that raises a deeper question. If a single transition and a calmer visual environment can protect so much energy, what other parts of a home shape how we recover from stress without us even noticing? Chapter 2: Why Quiet Spaces Feel Surprisingly Powerful. By evening, the office worker has already crossed the threshold of home. Her shoes are in their place. Her bag is no longer on her shoulder. The day, at least on the outside, appears to be over, but something inside her is still moving. Dinner warms on the stove while a podcast plays in the background. Her phone lights up beside the cutting board. The television speaks from the next room. A message arrives just as she sits down to eat. She isn't working anymore, yet her brain never truly leaves work behind. Many of us believe relaxation simply means doing something enjoyable. We tell ourselves that another episode, a few minutes of scrolling, or filling every quiet moment with entertainment is the reward we deserve after a stressful day. But what if the problem isn't that we're doing too much? What if we're still processing too much? That realization leads to the third Japanese life hack. Life hack 3: Build small moments of intentional stillness. In many Japanese homes, moments of stillness aren't treated as empty spaces waiting to be filled. They're protected. Imagine that same office worker placing her phone face down before making tea. She opens a nearby window. Evening air drifts into the apartment. Steam rises from the cup between her hands. Outside, distant birds blend with the gentle sound of rain. For a few minutes, nothing demands her attention. Nothing needs to be answered. Nothing needs to be decided. The moment seems almost insignificant. Yet it changes the direction of the entire evening. Researchers studying attention restoration theory have found that concentration begins to recover when the mind is no longer responding to constant competing signals. The brain doesn't always need more stimulation. Sometimes it simply needs fewer things competing for its attention. At the same time, the body's parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and recover system, begins to take over when our surroundings feel calm and predictable. Heart rate slows, breathing becomes easier, muscles soften without conscious effort. Recovery isn't something we force, it's what the body naturally does when we stop giving it new information to process. That's why many traditional Japanese routines include quiet pauses woven into everyday life. Preparing tea isn't simply about drinking tea. Opening a window isn't only about fresh air. Even making a simple meal can become a gentle transition instead of another source of stimulation. The activity matters less than the quality of attention it invites. Peace isn't created because the world becomes silent. It's created because, for a few moments, your mind is given permission to stop chasing everything at once. Instead of believing, I need a vacation before I can feel rested, you begin to realize, I need small moments where my brain doesn't have to keep switching. Tonight, try one simple experiment. Spend just 5 minutes doing one ordinary activity without background noise. Make tea without checking your phone. Open a window without playing music. Wash the dishes without turning on a video. Notice how different those same 5 minutes feel when your attention no longer competes with a dozen other voices. Because genuine recovery rarely arrives all at once. It begins with small moments when the mind is finally allowed to be still. And once those moments become part of everyday life, another question naturally follows. Chapter 3. When your home starts working for you. The office worker finishes dinner as the last light of day fades. Sunset spills across the apartment floor. The dishes are washed and returned to their place. The dining table is clear. The kitchen counter holds only a small kettle waiting for tomorrow morning. Nothing about today was easier than yesterday. The meetings were just as demanding. The train ride home was just as crowded. Life hasn't become less busy. Yet somehow, she feels noticeably lighter. Most of us believe calm is the reward for discipline. We promise ourselves we'll be more organized, more consistent, more motivated. We assume better habits begin with stronger willpower. But what if that's the wrong place to start? What if the most powerful Japanese life hack isn't another habit, but a home where the right habit becomes the easiest one? Life hack 4. Let the environment carry the habit. Walk into many Japanese homes and you'll notice something unusual. There isn't necessarily less living, there is simply less resistance. The mug used every morning sits beside the kettle. Keys return to the same tray near the entrance. Everyday objects have a place to return to. The bedroom contains only what supports rest. Each room has a clear purpose. Nothing asks for unnecessary decisions. At first, these choices seem too ordinary to matter. Together, they quietly shape everyday life. Behavioral scientists call this choice architecture. The idea is simple. Our decisions are shaped by the environment around us. When the easiest option is also the healthiest one, we rely far less on motivation. Environmental psychology reaches the same conclusion. People rarely repeat behaviors because they remember to. They repeat them because their surroundings make those behaviors easier. That's why staying calm inside a chaotic environment feels so difficult. Not because you're failing, but because your surroundings keep asking your brain to make one more decision. Every misplaced object becomes another choice. Every crowded surface becomes another distraction. Eventually, even simple routines begin to feel like work. Many Japanese homes solve this differently. Instead of asking people to become more disciplined, they remove unnecessary obstacles. The home becomes a quiet partner. It supports instead of demanding. Notice our office worker one last time before the evening ends. She turns off the kitchen light. The table is already ready for tomorrow's breakfast. Soft lighting fills the bedroom. Her phone rests outside immediate reach. Nothing asks her to solve another problem before sleep. For the first time all day, the environment isn't taking energy away. It's giving some back. And that's the quiet identity shift this documentary has been leading toward. Instead of believing, I need more discipline to create a calmer life, she begins to understand, I need fewer obstacles between me and the life I already want. Calm is no longer something he has to create through constant effort. Her environment helps create it. Tonight, choose one surface in your home, a bedside table, a kitchen counter, a small shelf near your front door. Remove everything that doesn't truly belong there. It may seem too small to matter, but that's how lasting systems begin, not with dramatic change, but with one space teaching your brain that peace can become the default. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside so many Japanese homes. The answer was never more motivation, it was a better environment. Perhaps the most surprising lesson hidden inside many Japanese homes has never been about minimalism, perfect organization, or becoming more productive. It's about protecting your attention before it quietly slips away. Throughout this journey, we've followed an ordinary office worker whose life never became less busy. The trains were still crowded, work still demanded his focus, responsibilities never disappeared. What changed was something much quieter. Her home stopped asking her brain to solve unnecessary problems, and over time, that small difference changed how she experienced everyday life. Maybe that's the real transformation. Not from someone who has mastered stress, but from someone who no longer creates quite so much of it. You don't need a different career, a different personality, or perfect discipline. You may simply need a home and a few gentle daily rituals that stop asking your mind to work quite so hard. The 4 Japanese life hacks we've explored all point toward the same quiet idea. Protect your transitions, reduce unnecessary visual decisions, create small moments of intentional stillness, and design your environment so calm becomes the easiest path, not the hardest one. Their true purpose was never to create a perfectly organized home. It was to preserve the energy that allows you to notice an evening conversation, a peaceful cup of tea, the warmth of dinner with your family, or the simple feeling of arriving home. Before you go to bed tonight, choose just one transition in your home, your entryway, your kitchen counter, your bedside table, or the corner of your living room. Make it just a little easier for tomorrow's version of yourself. Small systems rarely change life overnight, but they often change tomorrow, and tomorrow has a quiet way of becoming a lifetime. So I'd love to ask you one question. Which small part of your home quietly drains your energy the most without you noticing? Share your answer in the comments. Someone reading it may recognize the same hidden friction in their own life. And if you know someone who always feels exhausted, even after getting enough rest, share this documentary with them. It may help them discover that the problem was never a lack of effort, but a lack of supportive systems. If thoughtful explorations of Japanese daily life, behavioral psychology, and simple home design help you see ordinary life a little differently, I'd be grateful if you joined us for future documentaries. Until next time, take one quiet look around your home. You may discover that the life you've been trying to change begins with the space that's been shaping you all along.